I'm sitting in English class, doing my work, when at the corner of my eye, I see her. I've never seen her before. She must be new, I think to myself. It gets to the last 5 minutes of the period and I decide I'm going to go up and talk to her. I introduce myself. She does the same. Little did I know it at the time, this was the start of a relationship that would teach me some very, very valuable lessons in the hardest way possible. But before I get to that, let me backtrack a year. It's 2020, I've just started high school and I've been getting a lot more attention from girls. My best mate Crocker and I would hang out with these two girls every single day, and the only thing on our minds at the time was lust. It gets about 6 months into the year, and by this point I've had 5 failed talking stages. And as a result of this, I had developed an insanely inflated ego, because every single one of them I had cut off on my own terms. It was me who stopped talking to them. So I had convinced myself that I was like this crazy ladies man who could just get all the girls because I had so much, I guess you'd say, love interest at the time. But this brings me back to English class in March of 2021. From this point, I start talking to this girl who, for the sake of this story, we will call Jennifer, just about every single day. And the more I spoke to her, the more obvious it became to me that she was interested. And I liked her at the time as well. So logically, we start talking to each other. I guess we're sort of dating at this point, but I wasn't really taking it too seriously because I knew I had other options at the time. There was this girl named Sarah who had been interested in me for over a year by this point, and I still felt like I was this crazy ladies man who was just like a chick magnet pretty much. Obviously, I'm not saying that's what I was. This was just my perception of myself at the time. I had a massive ego, bro. So over the next couple months, we grow close fairly fast and we start having these minor little arguments. You know, we weren't up in arms and yelling at each other, but we'd have these petty little fights here and there. And I thought this to be very normal at the time because I saw how older lads would treat their girlfriends and sort of the disputes that they'd get in with each other. And I'd be like, bro, my relationship is nothing compared to that. These fights I'm having with her are all chill. But it gets to around June, and out of nowhere one night, Jennifer, my girlfriend, stops replying to me. She just randomly stops replying. I go on to Snap Maps and her location's been turned off. So I sort of like spam her, she doesn't answer, I ring her a couple times and she's not answering. So I wait about an hour and she finally decides to reply to me. She calls me and she says pretty much these exact words: don't get mad. You know, she like starts the sentence, don't get mad. You know, I'm gonna get mad as soon as the sentence starts with that. But anyhow, she says, but I snuck out with these people, you know, I'm doing this and that. And as soon as I heard this, bro, I felt fucking betrayed because the people she had snuck out with were some of my closest mates at the time. Yeah, Dallas and a few of the other boys who I was kicking it with. Now, as soon as she tells me this, I start crashing out. You know, I'm yelling at her over the phone. Obviously, this wasn't the right reaction. I was right to be mad, but not right to yell at her. And I think this was one of my biggest problems at the time, was just not knowing how to channel my emotions in a more sensible manner. Anytime someone would do something to slightly set me off, I would be so irrational and just fucking completely crash out on them. Like, bro, we're talking, if someone would say something to me that was meant as constructive criticism, like, oh, bro, are you doing anything to fix your skin? You know, you've got a bit of acne, because my skin was fairly bad at the time. I'd lash out and I'd blame it on something else. It wasn't my fault. And I'd tell them, you know, they're a for even asking. They say, just like insult them for giving me what was meant to be constructive criticism, them trying to help me, right? I could never seem to take advice on board, and as a result, I stayed in the same position for a very long time. Over the next few months, I get closer and closer to my girlfriend Jennifer, and we begin to see each other's true colors. You know, we really start fighting a lot. And when we wouldn't fight, when we'd have good days, good weeks, I would tell myself that that meant I was doing good. So what happens when you start to base how well your life is going based on how your relationship is going? You start to draw all of your self-worth and your self-respect from that one aspect. Relationships doing good, I'm happy, I respect myself. Relationships doing bad, I hate myself, I don't respect myself. That's where I started to draw all of my value from as a man. And this was so detrimental. It was the start of a very slow and painful downfall for me. I lost friends, I lost opportunities, and most of all, I lost time. Yo brother, real quick, if you're enjoying the video, smash the fuck out of the subscribe button. You have no idea how much it actually helps me, but with that said, I'll let you get back to the video. Now, I know I sort of touched on this topic before in previous videos, but I really want to dig deep here and actually explain to you why it is so detrimental to any young man or even young woman. It gets to April of 2022, and by this point, I'm not the confident guy that I once was. You know, all of my self-worth and value as a person is being extracted from external sources. So when it was time to go to bed at night, my head hits that pillow, I feel empty, right? I need something to consume, something to keep my mind occupied and to steer the thoughts away from that empty feeling. So start watching porn as much as I possibly can, pretty much 3 or 4 times a day whilst being in a relationship, and just using this as like a coping mechanism. And I started to believe that I wasn't good enough for anyone else. So although I wasn't happy in the relationship that I was in, I figured that I had to stay in it because I couldn't get anyone else, and no one else would give me the love that this girl would give me. And this becomes even more of a problem when the love that you experience is impure or toxic, however you want to put it, which it did become very much so. Not just on her end, but on mine. I wasn't a very nice person, neither was she, and that was just reciprocated off of the energy which I would give her. But towards the end of April, things were going super well. We're going on movie dates just about every single weekend, hanging out every day at school, getting food together, and I thought things were actually looking up. I thought, you know what, we've both matured so much, we're not fighting. It's been like a solid month since we had our last fight. But boy, was I wrong. It's a Friday night and we've just finished our movie at the cinema, at which point we decide we're gonna go for a walk to get some food together. As we're walking, we get about 2 blocks away from the cinema, and there's this woman screaming out some dude's name, right? She's screaming out, Clive, Clive, Clive. And we go up to her wondering like who she's looking for, if she needs help. She would have been about 65, maybe 70 years old. She's looking for her husband, okay? So she's on the phone to him, but neither of them live where we are. So she needs our help to find him. We walk a couple of blocks, eventually find her husband. And I remember after we return her to her husband, walking off with Jennifer, and she says to me, we're going to be an old married couple one day. And part of me at the time wanted to believe that, you know, think, oh yeah, it's all happy. But the other part of me at the time thought, fuck that. I do not want to be with this girl for the rest of my life. And deep down I did know that, but you know, things were going well at this point. So I thought, yeah, that's what I want to hear. Fast forward a few weeks, and obviously this little happy honeymoon stage could not last forever. I start arguing with her worse than we have ever argued before. And as a result, I was in a shitty mood most of the time, which was reflected into other relationships and other areas of my life. I'd come home angry. My parents would ask what's wrong. I'd say nothing, this and that. I wouldn't treat my best mate very well. I'd project my own insecurities onto him, Crocker, because I wanted to feel like I was the one in control, but bro, I just wasn't at the time. Over the next couple of months, we keep this up. Some weeks are good, some weeks not so good, but over this period, I push my best mate Crocker further and further away, right? We're talking less and less. And I just saw this as a thing like, you know, I'm hanging out with my girlfriend, I'm not actually pushing him away, we're still close. I just don't hang out with him at school. But in his mind, I knew what I was doing and I was purposefully pushing him away. So he grew very resentful of me. And as a result, he distanced. He stopped hanging out with me on the weekends, obviously not hanging out with me at school. And it gets to about July. Things are worse than ever with my girlfriend, fighting so fucking much. I just dread coming to school every day because I know every single day is gonna end in a fight. But over this past few months of just non-stop fighting, I'd almost become like addicted, you could say, to these negative emotions. You know, when you just get in such a negative thought pattern, and in order to feel some level of familiarity, you force yourself to think the same negative thoughts over and over again. It frustrates the fuck out of you, but no matter what you do, you can't seem to kick them. The only thing which ever actually worked for me to stop these negative thoughts was changing my environment and the people that I was around, which I'll get to in a second, but let me finish this story. From this point, every time I get into an argument with someone, whether it be my girlfriend, my friends, my family, I would yell and scream and just act super angry and try and be this super tough, because I thought if I didn't do that, I would be seen as weak. I would be seen as powerless, and I didn't want to be viewed in that light. So, I'd do the whole up in arms, yell, scream, shout, act like the tough. But deep down inside, it was just a scared little boy yearning for validation. Now, towards the end of July, it had sort of gotten a bit better, but everyone in my family, all my close friends, all of my girlfriend's friends, and most of my peers at school knew about the fighting. It became so difficult to hide. We just fight so fucking much. We didn't care if it was at school or anything like that. And as a result, I guess you could say we grew resentful of each other, and it became very obvious within the relationship. We'd still say we love each other, this and that, but the energy just wasn't there. That spark that we had when we first met each other didn't fucking exist anymore. But it gets to the start of August, and I've been invited to stay at my girlfriend's house for the night. It's a school night, because it is her birthday. So I'm training at the gym, finish up at the gym, go to my house, have a shower, and get picked up by Jennifer and her mum. We drive back to Jennifer's house. I'll socialise a bit with her family, her brother, her mum, her aunties, her uncles, nan and pop. And it gets to about 8 p.m. Everyone decides to go home, go to Jennifer's room, and we're watching movies together, this and that. But it gets to about 9:30. Everyone in her house has gone to sleep. So her mum and her brother. It's just us awake. We decide we're going to have a bit of an esh together. So we do exactly that. We thought it was just going to be a chill night. We do that, watch a movie, enjoy the company of each other, and fall to sleep. But after we do this, Jennifer starts stressing out, rightfully so, Didn't want to be in trouble off of her mum. And instead of saying to her, everything's going to be okay, just take some deep breaths, I say to her, oh my fucking God, chill out, stop being so paranoid. Now it goes without saying that was arguably the worst possible thing I could have said to her at the time. But once again, it goes back to that emotional maturity which I lacked. So once I've said this, she starts crying, she bawls her eyes out and she says, why can't you just be supportive and try to help me? I'm stressing out, this and that. And so I say to her, yeah, you're right. And I actually do. I don't even remember what I said, but I try and say something to calm her down. I'm hugging her. She ends up chilling out. 5 minutes later, we go to sleep, probably about an hour after this. Wake up the next morning, get ready for school, catch an Uber there, have a pretty normal day. But I remember the following week, once again, start fighting like crazy. And I think, what? This just isn't worth it. I'd been seeing all this, red pill content online, Tate and all that sort of thing. And I just think this is not fucking worth it. I'm not in a fulfilled, happy relationship. I'm not the man that I want to be. I'm just going to cut this off. But then I realized, hold up, evaluate where you're at right now. Don't have any friends. Your best mate doesn't fucking like you. He doesn't even talk to you. He's moved schools. You don't have anyone else at school to talk to. You have to stay with this girl. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting alone every single day at school with no friends. She was my only friend at the time. So stupidly, I stay with her for another couple of weeks. But one day she adds a guy who she'd spoken to in the past on Snapchat. And this was the final straw for me. I said, fuck this. I'm sick of being treated like this. You say you're sick of being treated like this, but then you stay with her every fucking time. That thought, I'm sick of being treated like this, finally overpowered that little in my brain that was just saying to stay with her. I broke up with her and I haven't fucking looked back since. Now, I'm not saying she was a terrible person or anything like that, bro. That's not the highlight of this video. So after this, I suck it up. I'm sitting by myself for the rest of the year, not really talking to anyone at school. I became the weird fucking lonely guy And I'm not trying to sound like a victim here. I'm just, generally explaining what happened. So much so that the highlight of my day was math class, because there was this one girl who was dating one of my old mates who I would talk to in maths, and she was just like generally nice to me. Like, I didn't have any sort of feelings for her, but she was just nice to me. We'd talk, we'd sit together, and that literally became the highlight of my day. I think I had math probably like 4, maybe 5 times a week, and every single time I'd be like, fuck yes, because I just actually had someone to talk to. I lacked that social interaction. Now, although I couldn't really think crazy positive thoughts at the time, there was a part of my brain that was starting to learn to respect me and love me, have that self-respect, because I had left my girlfriend. I was hanging out by myself and not complaining about it. And I was actually making moves towards a more positive life. But bro, I think my biggest issue in this entire relationship was I just couldn't communicate openly, and I couldn't express my emotions in the verbal form in a way that was appropriate. I would speak to my missus the same way I would speak to a mate like Crocker. So for example, what I said that night, stop being paranoid, just fucking chill out. That's something I'd say to Crocker, okay? If he said something like that to me, I'm stressed, and that's what I'd say to him. I didn't exactly know how to distinguish between the two, because in my mind, treating everyone the same was just so normalized, I saw how everyone else spoke to their girlfriends. Now, bro, I'm no expert, okay? I'm literally 17 years old. I'm just speaking from my personal experience. I'm not giving you advice by any means. But here's my perspective. Women don't want to be told what to do, but rather told how to do it. So instead of telling her, chill the fuck out, stop being so paranoid, that's an order, I could have said, hey, I understand how you're feeling. Just take some deep breaths. Everything's going to be okay. I've just given her clear instructions on how to be more calm. Now, this may sound so fucking like stupid, what I'm saying right now, but this is genuinely what I believe, because the relationships which I've had after this and the way I've spoken to girls after this has gotten me much better results. I got into a relationship in around September of 2023. And it was in this time that I learned a lot about myself, a lot about how to treat women. And the entire 7 months that I was speaking to this girl, not a single voice raised. We had arguments, we had little disputes, disagreements, but never did I yell at her, never did she yell at me, because communication was open and we learned how to communicate properly. I think every single young man out there should learn how to treat a woman properly before he gets into a relationship. And if you're in a relationship, think about what you say and learn as much as you possibly can so that you're giving the best that you possibly can, and expect it back as well. Now, after about a year of not being with Jennifer, I had learnt to really find that self-respect from within. Going to the gym, meditating, journaling, working on myself and my business, and working on building my future. And I started to really love myself. Like, I actually started to have a happy and fulfilling life, which wasn't something that I believed was possible for me back then, because I was stuck in these negative thought patterns. The only way to break a negative thought pattern, you keep telling yourself the same negative shit over and over again, is to change your environment completely. I can't stress it enough. Even now, bro, I struggle. I guess you'd call it a little bit of a struggle, but I constantly will go through these negative thought patterns. I might have a video not go very well. I'll be like, oh, you shit, no one wants to watch your content, this and that. And then a video will suddenly do well. And it's so easy for me to flick that switch. But what's important is to change your environment, bro. I'm going to Dubai in 1 week's time. And I feel like that's a necessary thing for me to do in order to be able to reset and really get that energy, that transfer of energy from my environment. Because if I'm just staying in the same old town all the time with the same old people, going to the same old gym, I'm gonna feel no greater than my environment. You need to change your environment, whether it be going to a friend's house, changing the people you're hanging around, moving schools, moving house, changing your apartment, depending on where you're at in life. Go to the park, something like that. Do something different, okay? And bro, by this point, I'm just yapping. This may sound a little bit weird, but content creation has literally changed my entire life. Before I started YouTube, I didn't really think about any of this stuff, but now thinking about all these past experiences, it allows me to realize why I said and did the things that I did. And it makes me reflect on my own emotional maturity, which is only growing, from this point. I think this is hands down the most important thing you can do, is dig up past emotional traumas or any sort of emotional experience you have and identify why you felt that way. That's how you get that emotional maturity. And you may be wondering, why the fuck's he talking about emotional maturity? How fruitful your relationship is directly correlates with your emotional maturity and your ability to speak openly. And that's something that I've really had to learn to do. I fucking pour my heart out on these videos, bro. I tell you everything, no holding back. There's not a single detail I miss out of these stories. The good, the bad, the ugly, fucking whatever, bro. And that's really made my life just change for the better, bro, honestly. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one today. If you did, please smash the fuck out of that subscribe button. It helps me so much. With that said, I'll see you in the next one. Stay grinding, my G.